Ryosuke was an ugly, cultured loser whose miserable life took a turn when he started giving girls strength in exchange for getting freaky with them. It all started after Ryosuke found his Tinder date stalking his house in the rain, so he invited her inside to change. However, she suddenly stabbed him with a broken sword and drained him of his energy, which wasn't his first time getting sucked dry.
What did he say?
She was so surprised that he was able to recover quickly with enough energy to spare after getting stabbed. Ryosuke told her that he had no idea what had happened and begged her to explain what was going on. She then began her explanation of her situation by introducing herself as Lysara, the daughter of a noble family in Grimwald. When he asked what Grimwald was, she explained that it was a world where Grim Reapers lived, which made him laugh. She then explained that the reason he was still alive was because the sword she had stabbed him with only worked on the spirit and not the body. She said that in doing so, she had formed a temporary contract with him. When she mentioned that their spirits were now linked, the slow-brained idiot said she didn't have to make up stories just to get in his pants. He then puckered up his lips and began leaning in for a kiss, which earned him a well-deserved brain-resetting kick on the jaw. Lysara then walked up to him and began stomping on him as she explained that the contract was so she could use his energy to recover. She said staying in the human realm took up most of her energy, so he was going to serve as her temporary human power bank. She told him to be grateful that she even considered linking her spirit with a deadbeat loser like him. However, it seemed like Ryosuke had a knack for saying stupid things because every word he spoke only made her pissed. Instead of responding to him, she summoned her scythe and promised to give him a free pass into the Soul Society. Luckily for him, an uninvited guest dropped in at that moment, and before it began attacking, Lysara put up a barrier around the house. She then changed outfits and asked Ryosuke to hide as she continued fighting, but eventually her energy began depleting. This allowed the creature to overpower her and slam her into the couch. Almost immediately, Lysara's clothes began melting off her body, and the moment Ryosuke laid eyes on her, his mini Excalibur began reacting. Just then, the creature grabbed Lysara by her leg and was about to finish her off, but Ryosuke ran towards them and tried to pull Lysara down only to accidentally grab her plots instead. Lysara screamed at him to let go and began trying to shake him off her body, but that only made them fall together. Their position on the ground allowed Ryosuke to latch on her melons more, and the moment her hand came in contact with his face, his energy transferred into her. With her replenished energy, Lysara managed to defeat the creature but blew up most of the house in the process. Ryosuke, on the other hand, didn't care that his house had been destroyed and excitedly told her that his dirty thoughts had saved them. This had Lysara asking if he was crazy, so he explained that every time he had disgusting cultured thoughts, the energy he gave to her multiplied. He was so happy that he promised to do more, but she kicked his ceramic balls and said she wasn't interested in a degenerate lecher like him. Lysara informed him that she had come in search of the one, a person who was powerful enough to sustain her energy, obviously not him. After hearing this, Ryosuke started whining like a spoiled little brat and said he refused to accept the fact that she wasn't interested in him, but Lysara made things worse by revealing that he was going to die in 3 months. Ryosuke was in disbelief and fell to his knees before her, so she offered to give him a new life if he helped her locate the one. He promised to do whatever she wanted as long as she saved his pitiful, unholy life, so she agreed. However, the Featherhead still asked why he should believe she was a real Grim Reaper, even though he'd just witnessed the battle. Lysara couldn't decide if he was born stupid or his brain cells shrinked from too much SOX emission. To convince him of her powers, she told him that a famous panda in the zoo had just died, so he checked it up online. However, she nearly fainted as she had used up all her energy, and he caught her before she hit the floor. As she lay at his arms, all the slime ball could think of was how good she smelled and how soft her body was against his. This caused his hormones to spike, so he transferred some of his energy to her. Immediately after she received the energy, she rebuilt his house, and Ryosuke began celebrating how his lewdness was going to save the world. Lysara ignored him and walked into the nearest room, but turned around to tell him that he wasn't allowed to disturb her. The following day, Ryosuke woke up and was disappointed that his shield hero didn't bother to rise. When he went downstairs, he found Lysara sitting in the living room dressed in the same uniform as that of his school. She told him she had enrolled in his school so she could find the one, and also let him know that she had helped herself to his energy in the morning. Ryosuke scolded her for excluding him from the fun, but she assured him that he'd be able to get it up again after a day or two. At school, Lysara used the fact that everyone was crazy about her to secretly find the one by taking their energy. As Mina and Ryosuke watched her interact with the students, Mina asked how she never knew he had such a relative. Ryosuke told her that he'd just met her for the first time the day before, but before he could say more, the school's self-proclaimed heartthrob, Tomino, pushed him to the ground. He then walked to Lysara and put his arm over her shoulder, which was just an excuse for him to get a feel of her plots. Irritated by his pompous behavior, Lysara gave him a soul-stealing slap and told him never to put his filthy hands on her again. But since he was a spineless man-child, he promised to report her to his daddy and ran away. Sometime during the day, while Mina was heading to class, she noticed Lysara standing on the staircase, so she pushed the door open and went in. However, as soon as the door opened, Lysara vanished before her eyes, leaving her to wonder if she just discovered the Matrix or she was simply tripping. Meanwhile, Lysara had appeared on the roof, and as she thought of how to locate the one, she remembered the conversation she had with Quill before leaving home. Quill had told her that she had located the one in Ryosuke's school, and after Lysara thanked her for her help, she gave her a necklace. Back in the present, Lysara held the necklace in her hand and said it had reacted to the presence of the one. Later on after school, Ryosuke stayed back with Lysara, and he introduced her to all the guys in school who had weird talents. However, none of them were as powerful as Lysara had hoped, and the energy she got wasn't enough. In the end, they went to sit on a bench outside, and while they were talking, a portal opened up behind Lysara and Quill stepped out of it. She excitedly hugged Lysara, fulfilling Ryosuke's dream of seeing plots rubbing against each other. Before he could enjoy the show fully, Lysara grabbed his face and scolded him for showing his sus behavior in public. Quill asked who the lanky stooge was, and Lysara told her that he was her temporary partner. Lysara then asked why she had come, so she explained that she had located the one and said his name was Tameno. Lysara and Ryosuke were surprised by this, and Lysara let Quill know that Tameno was a dirty pig. Just then, two flying creatures appeared out of nowhere, and Quill told Lysara that she would take them on while she went in search of Tameno. However, the moment Lysara and Ryosuke left, Quill laughed and petted one of the creatures. It was then revealed that she had approached Tameno earlier on and connived with him to humiliate Lysara. However, Tameno refused to shake hands with Lysara unless she apologized for humiliating him in class, but she refused. She tried reasoning with him, but Ryosuke told her to let him be as he didn't deserve to be treated with respect. They then turned to leave, but Tameno got in their way just as Quill showed up and asked them to play nicely. Still, Tameno refused, so Quill walked over to them and forced them to shake hands. By the time Lysara realized that Tameno wasn't the one, it was too late as the seal Quill had put on Tameno's hand activated and bound Lysara in crystal chains. While Ryosuke helped Lysara break free, Quill put a bug in Tameno's ear and ordered him to forget everything. She then turned to face Lysara, who demanded to know why she betrayed her. Quill told her it was because she wanted her out of the way and said she would take the one for herself. At this point, both girls had already transformed, and Ryosuke was having a field day ogling their bodies in their revealing clothes. Quill then attacked Lysara with some ice crystals, but she managed to block them with her flames and charged at Quill. Quill had already anticipated the move, so she dodged it, and when Lysara tried to strike again, she disarmed her. Without her weapon, Lysara couldn't defend in time, and Quill used the chance to grab hold of her. She pointed out that she was slowing down because she'd lost a lot of energy, and Lysara fell to her knees. The next moment, Quill raised her sword to deliver the final blow, but Ryosuke got between them. The idiot somehow managed to grab hold of each girl's milkshake and told them that fighting was wrong. Quill screamed and moved back as she called him a disgusting scumbag. He then asked Lysara to take his energy, and she reminded him that it would take a few days for his energy to return. Ryosuke assured her that he was fine, since his little general was already standing at attention. Lysara did as he asked, and Quill was shocked to see how explosive Ryosuke's energy was. Both girls then attacked one another with powerful magic spells, but Lysara's spell was stronger. In the end, Quill was thrown out of the room, and when Ryosuke asked where she was, Lysara told him she'd escaped. Later that night, Ryosuke and Lysara noticed the lights in his house were on. Thinking it was an intruder, they planned to have Lysara take them out, but they were surprised to see Mina waiting for them. Mina then asked if there was something they were keeping from her, so they explained everything to her. Mina told them that she wasn't surprised, since she'd seen Lysara disappear at school. The next day at school, Mina informed Lysara that there were some students known as the Extraordinary Eight, and said they all had unique skills, which led people to refer to them as superpowered beings. When Ryosuke said he'd never heard of them, she told him that it was because he was always daydreaming about cheeks he'd never get to clap. Lysara then insisted that Mina introduce her to the students right away, so she could see if the one was among them. The first person Mina introduced her to was Meshiori Munio, a professional plot sizer. Mina explained that Munio could tell the size of a girl's melons by looking at them once. Mina then told Munio that Lysara wished to know her better, but when Lysara stretched out her hand to shake her, Munio refused to take it. She said she wasn't going to shake the hands of a girl whose plots were so small that you'd mistake them for a cluster of cherries. Lysara demanded she take her words back, but Munio insisted that she didn't believe small plots mattered. She said women who had large, well-rounded melons deserved to be called goddesses, and to prove her point, she pointed to the video being projected on the wall. The girl in the video, whom Ryosuke referred to as Iria, was a certified baddie and had milkshakes that had to have been bestowed on her by the goddess of plots. When Munio tried to tell them her bust size, Ryosuke stopped her and insisted on guessing it. However, he guessed wrong and Munio corrected him, but he argued that he knew what he was saying. Munio told him that if he truly believed she was lying, he could find out for himself at Iria's signing event. Ryosuke agreed but said that if he was right, Munio would shake hands with Lasora, and she agreed. That night, Mina was in her room when her parents came to inform her that a foreign exchange student would be living with them. The student turned out to be Quill, and it was obvious that she had something devious planned. The next day, Mina arrived at the train station with Quill, who was dressed in a school uniform. Ryosuke and Lasara were surprised to see her and asked Mina if she knew Quill's true identity, to which she told them yes. She also revealed that she had entered a temporary contract with Quill, which shocked them both. However, Lasora told Mina that she wouldn't interfere with their contract since it was mutual, but told Quill she needed to speak with her. At school, Lasara questioned Quill about the attacks and she assured her that she had nothing to do with it. Lasora then demanded she tell her how she found out about the location of the one, so she told her she had gotten the information from Merla Life Security. Later in the day, Ryosuke and the girls went to Merla Life Security to take part in Iria's fan meeting. When it was Ryosuke's turn to meet Iria, he outright stared at her plots. Iria then handed him her autograph, but made sure to touch his hands so she could steal his energy. It turned out that she was also a Grim Reaper, and when she realized she couldn't get much energy from him, she pushed him aside. Munio went next, and when she saw Iria's melons, she admitted that they were bigger than what she believed, which shocked Ryosuke. When Iria handed her the autograph and touched her hand, she was more than pleased with how much energy she got. While she was happily shaking hands with Munio, Lasara called out to her and asked why she was posing as an idol. Iria jumped in surprise and told Lasara that she couldn't have Munio since Merla had set their eyes on her. Lasara told her that she wasn't interested in Munio and told her that Merla had information regarding someone with a lot of power. Iria told her that she had no idea what she was talking about, and both girls tried to stare each other down, after which people fled for their lives and Lasara covered the area with her barrier before Iria transformed into her true form. Ryosuke, who had sworn to be as dumb as a doorknob, asked what was going on, so Quill explained that Lasara and Iria had been rivals since they were in school. Lasara told him that Iria couldn't accept the fact that she'd always be number 2, so she had joined Merla, which worked for Grimwald. Iria admitted that she had joined Merla to get her hands on a weapon powerful enough to defeat Lasara. After Iria summoned her weapon, Lasara charged at her, and as they fought, Ryosuke couldn't help but admire Iria's bouncy pillows. Lasara told him to shut up, and Quill told her that if she didn't take energy from him, she wouldn't be able to defeat Iria. She even explained to Iria how Ryosuke and Lasara's partnership worked, so Iria decided to seduce Ryosuke and steal him from Lasara. As expected, Ryosuke couldn't resist Iria's exotic teasing, which annoyed Lasara, so she jumped in the air and tried to strike Iria with a powerful fireball. However, Iria didn't bat an eye, as she countered the attack with a powerful electric strike of her own and knocked Lasara down. Lasara managed to get up, and Ryosuke begged her to take his energy, but she refused. As Lasara lay on the floor, Iria still wasn't satisfied, so she charged up again and shot another blast at her. This time around, Ryosuke acted as a meat shield, taking the blast head-on as he gave Lasara a speech about how she needed to focus on her goal. He told her she would lose if she kept refusing his help and dwelling on the fact that he was a shameless skirt chaser. By the time Iria stopped her attack, Ryosuke fell into Lasara's open arms. When she touched his chest, his energy was transferred to her, and she wasted no time in knocking Iria out. A few days later, Iria transferred to Ryosuke's school, and as expected, the male students flocked to her like sheep. Tired of watching Iria check the energy level of every clueless noob that tried to get her attention, Lasara walked up to her and said she needed to talk. They ended up on the roof, and Lasara scolded Iria for checking the students' energy levels. Iria told her that she knew there was someone special at the school, making Lasara realize that Merla had been searching for the one too. Iria assured her that she didn't care what Merla was after, because all she wanted was to defeat Lasara once and for all. Lasara then told her that she had no problem showing her that her oversized plots didn't matter in a fight. The next moment, Ryosuke screamed at Lasara and Iria to stop as he stood between the two of them. He told them that it wasn't good for girls to get into fights, so Lasara agreed and began to walk away, even though Iria called her a coward. Seeing that her words had no effect, Iria tried to transform but stopped when Ryosuke shouted and told her to hold the pose. He then took a mental picture of her body and thanked her for blessing his immoral mind with her naturally endowed plots. She then walked up to him and asked him to give her a tour of the school, but he hesitated, so she asked if her heavy jugs weren't as enticing as Lasara's bed of rocks. Ryosuke assured her that he was a lover of big plots, so she begged him to go with her. But the moment he agreed to it, he felt Lasara drilling a hole in his head with her piercing gaze. Iria knew Lasara was jealous, so she asked if she could borrow her boy toy for a few hours. Lasara said she didn't care what they did because she didn't need him and would make sure she found the one quickly. After she stormed off, Iria asked Ryosuke if he was interested in going somewhere private with her. Meanwhile, Lasara went around the school asking about another member of the Extraordinary Eight. From her investigation, she learned that there was a second-year male student who spent most of his time in the library researching stuff. At the same time, Ryosuke was daydreaming of girls changing in the changing room. But his lewd imaginations were soon cut off by Iria, who offered to make his dream a reality. She then used her powers to make another outfit before she began giving Ryosuke an exclusive strip show. Being the proud horn dog that he was, he fell to his knees and began thanking her for giving him something to beat off to later. Iria smiled and held his hand as she secretly took some of his energy for herself before she changed outfits completely. She then asked if his energy multiplied every time he was aroused, and he admitted that he had no idea. Iria told him that she believed her wiggly melons would unlock his true potential more than Lasara's non-existent plots would, and asked him to form a contract with her. While that was going on, Mina went up to the roof to look for Ryosuke but met Quill, who let her know that he was most likely making plot with Iria in the changing room. The next moment, the door to the stairs opened and Lasara ran out with a monster hot on her tail. She immediately ordered Mina to get to safety and asked Quill to help her take the creature down. Before Quill could refuse, she transformed and created a barrier which separated her from Mina, much to her annoyance. Back in the changing room, Iria was still trying to convince Ryosuke to form a contract with her by letting him cop a feel of her plots. She also let him know that she could remove the sword Lasara had used to create the contract with him. When Iria realized that Ryosuke's proud member wasn't reacting to her seductive advances, this made her angry. So she got up and began getting dressed, just when Mina arrived and told Ryosuke that Lasara was in trouble. By the time they got to the rooftop, Lasara and Quill were about to be defeated, so Ryosuke ran to help Lasara. She told him that she didn't want energy generated from a shameless skank like Iria, but she was surprised that it wasn't much. Iria admitted that Merlot had created them, but said she didn't like how they were interfering with her business. After she created another barrier, the creature fired a shot at them, and Ryosuke pushed Lasara out of the way. This caused the remaining material covering her plots to rip, and as soon as Ryosuke saw them, he became very excited. Lasara punched him in the face and told him not to stare at her, but he grabbed her hand, and his energy began swirling around. Iria demanded to know why he was reacting to Lasara's underdeveloped oranges, and he said it was because she was the only person who set his heart ablaze. He then pushed her face into his crotch and told her to take all his energy before he passed out from the excitement. With her energy replenished, Lasara took out the creature in one strike, but the force of the blast caused Ryosuke to fall onto Iria's exposed plots. She immediately screamed and pushed him off when she realized that the fake plots she wore were no longer attached. Everyone was surprised by this, but Ryosuke assured her that he liked them no matter what and even showed her that his pole was straight because of it. Instead of the reaction he hoped for, Iria slapped him and ran off in shame while the others just watched her. After she left, Lasara told the others that she had gotten information about another member of the Extraordinary Eight. Together, they all ran to the library, but Lasara was disappointed to find out that the person she'd been looking for was Ryosuke. Mina then explained that he had no idea he was one of the Extraordinary Eight and said he was given the title because of how dirty his mind was. Some nights later, after Quill replenished her energy from Mina, Quill admitted that she disliked Ryosuke in the beginning because he liked to think with his rigid pole rather than his brain. However, she had come to see that he wasn't that bad, but she still wished he would stop being a cultured freak. Later that night, Quill went for a stroll and came across Ryosuke and Lasara fighting another monster. Since Lasara had put up a barrier, she had to wear some weird glasses to see what was going on. The next day at school, she saw Ryosuke reading in the library, and when Mina joined her, she said he was training. Quill didn't understand what kind of training would be done by reading. Mina explained that since he was very good at imagining things, he was training his mind to remember things so he could recharge his energy faster. For the rest of the day, Ryosuke kept up with his training, and Quill and Mina watched him. He was so engrossed with what he was reading that when Lasara asked him to join her after school, he turned down her offer. After school, Lasara met up with the fifth member of the Extraordinary Eight, but was disappointed to find out that he wasn't the one. That evening, Quill and Mina saw Ryosuke inside a magazine shop going through some adult magazines, and Quill was impressed to see that he was still dedicated to his task. Later that night, while Ryosuke slept, Quill watched him like a creep and was surprised to see that even in his sleep, he was still training. She also remembered that Mina had told her that he had an invisible dictionary which contained all the words he needed to cause a reaction and charge his energy instantly. At school the next day, Ryosuke was in the library when Lasora came to ask for his help, but he ignored her. In the end, she met up with the last member of the Extraordinary Eight alone and was met with another disappointment. That evening when she got home, she told Ryosuke that all her research had led her to a dead end. But when she realized he wasn't paying attention, she got mad. She told him that time was running out and she needed to find the one soon or she would be in trouble. Outside, Quill and Mina were on their way home when they saw Lasora run out of the house with Ryosuke hot on her heels. At the park where Lasora had gone, she was attacked by a monster which secreted acid from its body. As the monster held her up with its tentacles, Ryosuke came running. It then dropped Lasora and went after Ryosuke, who managed to run towards Lasora and transferred his energy to her. Instead of attacking Lasora, the creature turned around and started chasing Quill and Mina, but Lasora managed to create a barrier before it could get to them. Quill and Mina had put on the barrier glasses, and Mina told Quill that Ryosuke had brought out his dictionary. Quill said she couldn't see it, so Mina told her to use her heart and not her eyes. Quill did as she advised and was very excited to see that she could also see the dictionary. However, she also saw him as some majestic centaur, while Mina saw him as a regal angel. Ryosuke kept recharging Lasora's energy as he read through his dictionary, and eventually Lasora used a powerful fireball to hit the creature, but it remained unharmed. When the creature attacked again, she pushed Ryosuke out of the way so she could attack, but it grabbed her with its tentacles, forcing Ryosuke to open his dictionary again so he could recharge. Lasora told him not to do it as it could damage his soul, but he told her that he was going to protect her no matter what. However, before he could finish, the creature grabbed him too, and after squeezing his neck he became limp. The next moment, however, he began calling out page numbers, and his energy level spiked only to disappear completely. Just when they thought he wouldn't recover, his chest began glowing, and he pulled out the sword from his chest. Lasora was surprised to see that it was complete as he used it to destroy the creature before passing out. Meanwhile, someone who had been watching the fight from Grimwald was happy to see Ryosuke wielding the complete sword. Back on Earth, Ryosuke woke up, and the girls tried to get him and Lasora to reconcile. When it looked like she wasn't interested, Quill hugged him and said she'd take him, which made Lasora call her a man-stealing. After they returned home, Lasora explained to Ryosuke that the sword inside him was called Gram. She said it had been a gift from the god of war and had been divided between two noble families to protect, and her family was tasked with protecting the female lineage. She told him that the Galderblog family was tasked with protecting the male lineage. However, theirs had been missing for years. Just then, Iria arrived, and after they told her what had happened, she accused Lasora of stabbing Ryosuke with her half of the sword when she knew the missing half was in him. Lasora assured her that she had no idea it was in him, so Mina suggested they call Ryosuke's mother and find out the truth from her. When they called her, she explained that she had met his father standing outside her house one rainy night, with no memory of who he was or where he came from, so she invited him in. She told him that after living together for a while they became a couple and she got pregnant. She also admitted that she had lied about his death and said that his father had stabbed her in the chest with a broken sword. However, when she woke up, there was no wound and he was nowhere to be found, so she summed it all up to a bad dream. Later on, Lasora told Ryosuke that the sword had awoken inside him and said that there was a prophecy about it. The prophecy stated that Gram would become whole again when Grimwald was in danger, and it would defeat evil using the power of the god of war. This made the fool jump for joy as he told Lasora that he was destined to be a hero and save the world from danger. The next day, while Iria was in a taxi with her manager, she asked her if Merlot was behind the assassination attempts on Lasora. Her manager assured her that they had nothing to do with it, but she found it hard to believe since it was their creation that was attacking Lasora. Meanwhile, Lasora and Ryosuke were about to fight another creature when Quill showed up. She immediately created a barrier and told them she would handle things before she went ahead and sliced the creature up. However, it was still alive and attacked her before she could move out of the way. Fortunately, it was only interested in draining her of her energy, so it let her go once it had achieved its goal, allowing Mina to transfer some energy to her. Lasora continued fighting, but every time she cut the creature in half it created smaller minions. Since she wasn't paying attention, one of the minions attacked her band and drained her energy. Ryosuke immediately used his dictionary to help him visualize a steamy encounter with Lasora in a bathhouse. This allowed him to transfer his energy to her but weakened his body in the process. The girls told him to stop being reckless, but he insisted that women were meant to be protected at all costs. Unknown to them, they were being watched from Grimwald, and the moment Lasora's tears came in contact with Ryosuke's chest, it began to glow. He was then lifted into the air as his energy multiplied before he pulled out Graham and destroyed the creature. The mysterious person who had been watching them made a mental note to be careful of Lasora, because she was the one who brought out the power of Graham. He then went to Earth and grabbed Mina, but when Ryosuke tried to attack him, Lasora stopped him, saying it would be unwise. The man, who turned out to be Galderblag, told them that if they wanted Mina back, they had to come get her. As they made their way to Grimwald, Lasora informed Ryosuke that the man they were going up against was the head of the Galderblag family. When they entered Grimwald, they pointed out a tower to him and said it controlled everything. Lasora explained that all the energy collected from the human world was stored in the tower, after which it was transformed into Grimwald energy and used to power the sun. Quill also added that inside the tower was a gate which connected Grimwald to the human world. Lasora explained that it had been her family's duty to manage Grim Reapers going in and out of the gate. However, Galderblag had started a revolt and taken control of the tower. When they landed in a clearing, Ryosuke insisted on going to confront Galderblag, but Lasora said it would be best if they went to her mother for help. Ryosuke refused, saying that Mina's life was in danger, so Lasora tried to make him understand that they were going up against a very powerful man. Still, he insisted that he had Graham, and it was enough for him to take Galderblag down. Meanwhile, Iria had received a call from the higher-ups of Merla, and they instructed her to lead Lasora and the others into a trap. Back in Grimwald, Ryosuke and the girls were fighting off creatures that were sent by Galderblag, but they were greatly outnumbered. Just as Ryosuke was about to be attacked, Quill ran in front of him and took the blow. Ryosuke managed to carry her unconscious body away from the battleground and tried to help her. However, he couldn't find anything in his dictionary, and just when they were about to get squashed, Iria swooped in like Superman and saved them. She then told Lasora that she was a disappointment for not being able to take down a couple of weak-ass monsters. Lasora told her to shut up before both of them joined forces and destroy the remaining creatures. While all that was happening, Ryosuke had passed out, and when he woke up he found himself looking at an older version of Lasora. At first, he thought it was Lasora until he noticed she had a large rack, so he knew she wasn't the one. His obvious jab at her knick-knack racks earned him a punch from an enraged Lasora. After she settled down, she introduced the older woman as Almaya Restal, her mother and the head of the Restal clan. When he noticed Quell sitting in the corner, he asked how her injuries were, and she told him that she'd been treated. He then apologized for putting them in harm's way just because he was being boneheaded. Almaya then ordered her maids to continue the healing process on Ryosuke, but it turned out to be a very erotic foreplay, which got them very excited. However, the spell was broken when a lamp fell off the table, causing Ryosuke to cower in fear as he remembered how powerless he had been during the fight. Almaya told him to rest for a while so his wounds would heal, but when he insisted that he was fine, she told him that some wounds weren't physical. Later on, while Lasora and Quell were taking a bath, Lasora informed Quill that she would infiltrate the tower with Iria. Quill insisted that she was going on a suicide mission, but Lasora told her that she would take the Restal army along with her. She also said that if the plan failed, it was up to Quill to do something, and then she walked out of the room. Just then, Almaya walked in and told Quill to have some faith in Lasora, as she wouldn't be beaten so easily. Later that night, Quill replayed Lasora's words in her head, after which she made a decision. She went to Ryosuke's room, and when he asked why she had come, she took off her clothes, saying she wanted him to develop plot with her.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
She then got on top of him and tried kissing him, but he turned his head away, so she asked if he didn't find her attractive. Ryosuke told her that it was too sudden, but she insisted that she was doing it because she wanted him to be her first, and kissed him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Iria was on a call with her employer, who told her that all she had to do was get Lasora to break her contract with Ryosuke. Just then, Lasora got closer to her and suggested they cut through the forest and meet up with the Restal army. Back at Lasora's house, Quill tried her best to turn Ryosuke on, but it didn't work, so he told her he couldn't be with anyone. Quill insisted that he return to his old cultured self, as Lasora needed him, making him realize there was something she wasn't telling him. She then disclosed Lasora's plan to infiltrate the tower with Iria, and he asked why she had kept it from him. When she said nothing, he realized she'd been trying to seduce him to help Lasora, and after she confirmed it, his mind flashed to the time he spent with Lasora. He then thanked her for trying to help and said he wasn't going to sit back doing nothing, while the girls risked their lives. As he spoke, he stood up but completely forgot he was naked until Quell screamed after his joystick king face to face with her. Elsewhere, Lysara managed to convince the general of the Restal army to attack the tower, so she could sneak in with Iria. Before the attack began, Mina climbed out of the window as she tried to escape. When the attack began, Lysara and Iria made their way to the tower, but since no one noticed Mina on the edge of the building, a stray shot hit the building, causing her to fall. As Mina fell, all she could think about was Ryo-Sukage, and the next moment, she began glowing. When she screamed that she loved Ryo-Sukage, she was enveloped by a very powerful golden energy. All who saw it were surprised, and when Galderblog was informed that she had escaped, he ordered his soldiers to find her. At the same time, Lysara and Iria made it to the secret elevator and were already making their way into the tower. When the energy disappeared, Quill told Ryo-Sukage that it probably meant the girls were in trouble, so they tried to leave. However, Almea stopped them, and while her maids chased after Quill, she tried to get Ryo-Sukage to return to his room. He told her he couldn't do so as he needed to save Lysara, and she said the reason Lysara hadn't told him about her plan was because she didn't want Galderblog to get his hands on Graham. Meanwhile, Lysara and Iria had made it into the tower, and Iria directed her to a room, which she needed to pass through to get to Galderblog. Unfortunately, she had no idea she was walking into a trap, and when she realized it, it was too late because she was surrounded by many monsters. She called out to Iria, but instead of helping her, she closed the doors and left her alone. Lysara tried attacking, but her powers didn't work and she was bound by some crystal chains. The chains floated towards the center of the room and allowed the monsters to begin reenacting 50 Shades of Grey on her. Back at the mansion, Almea managed to convince Ryo-Sukage that Lysara was doing the right thing, but told her that as long as Lysara was by his side and they became one, they would be able to use Graham's true powers. He then pulled out Graham from his chest, which caused a powerful beam of light to shoot up into the sky, after which he left for the tower alongside Quill, who came to get in with her pet monsters. Inside the tower, Iria returned to help Lysara, and after she freed her, Lysara took out her anger on the monsters. But more kept popping up, so Iria told her to go ahead while she fought them off, and Lysara told her to make sure she didn't die before running off. Elsewhere in the tower, Mina was taken to Galderblog, and he demanded to know how she had activated her energy. Mina told him that she didn't know how, but looking at his face made her scared, so she called Ryo-Sukage's name, and almost immediately her energy burst out. Just then Lysara arrived, and Galderblog summoned a large centipede which eventually turned into his cursed sword. Lysara shot a fireball at him, but he absorbed it with his sword before he grabbed Mina. He then told Lysara that she was too late and said that now that he had the one, he was going to rule the world. Lysara was surprised to find out that Mina was the one, and even though she was in front of her, she never realized it. As he absorbed Mina's energy, Lysara tried to stop him, but one of his monsters stopped her. Mina resigned herself to her fate and said her final goodbyes, but the moment she said Quill's name, the seal on her chest glowed. Galderblog immediately let go of her, but said all he had to do was capture Quill and force her to cancel the contract. He also asked Lysara if she was willing to end her contract with Ryo-Sukage and let him have Graham. Lysara refused and attacked him, but he blocked the attack before he sent her flying into a wall. He then attacked her with a powerful blast that destroyed the wall, and as she lay waiting for him to strike the final blow, Ryo-Sukage arrived. He apologized to the girls for coming late, then turned to face Galderblog, who wasted no time in attacking him. Fortunately, Ryo-Sukage used Graham to deflect the attack and told Galderblog that he would take him down. However, he was no match for a madman with a cursed sword, and Galderblog knocked Ryo-Sukage down. He took a seat. He told Ryo-Sukage that if Graham was truly made to destroy evil, then Ryo-Sukage had to prove it by defeating him. Lysara tried to make Ryo-Sukage see that he was going to die, but he assured her that he would be fine. He held onto her arm, which made him a little bit flustered before he pulled her in for a hug and thanked her. When he got back up, he began fueling his energy by imagining himself and Lysara in a happy relationship. This was enough to help him beat the shit out of Galderblog, who asked how he could be that powerful. Ryo-Sukage shamelessly admitted that when he and Lysara were together they were unstoppable. However, they had no idea he was imagining himself and Lysara rolling in the hay. Galderblog couldn't believe he was getting beaten by the power of lust and told Ryo-Sukage to prove himself. When Ryo-Sukage attacked, he blocked it with his sword, but noticed it was going to break in half sooner or later. Ryo-Sukage channeled his energy into Graham and hit Galderblog with a powerful blast, which held him to the wall. From his position, he explained that his duty was to control the human population to ensure maximum happiness. However, the royal family began to take pity on humans who were to die and extend their lives. He said this had led to a widespread energy shortage in Grimwald and had caused the human realm to suffer from famine and war. When Ryo-Sukage released his hold on him and he fell, he revealed that he wanted to destroy the border between the human realm and Grimwald. By doing so, he could adjust the human population, but Ryosuke had just saved him all that trouble. The next moment, a bright blue light enveloped the tower and everyone inside and around it. When Lasora opened her eyes, Ryosuke and Mina lay on the ground unconscious, but Quill drew her attention to their surroundings. When she looked around, she noticed they were in the human realm, but it looked very different and Galderblog soldiers were making their way inside the city. When Ryosuke woke up, he was in his bed, and when he turned around he saw a tearful Mina, who ran and hugged him. Her screams attracted Lasora and Quill, and they were very glad to see him awake and healthy. After they settled down, they let him know that he had been asleep for an entire week because of how much energy he had used. He then asked what had happened. After he defeated Galderblog, and Lasora explained that there was chaos for a while, but after the Restal army was dispatched, things settled down. Ryosuke began blaming himself for everything that went wrong, but Quill told him that if he hadn't defeated Galderblog, things would have been worse. He accepted her explanation and said that since everyone was safe and things were back to normal, he was happy. Lasora had to remind him that he had only 2 weeks left to live, but she told him that they were going to save him now that they had the one. Later on, Quill and Lasora brought Ryosuke some food while wearing only aprons. Ryosuke began shedding tears of joy, but Lasora let him know that they weren't completely naked underneath. He didn't seem to mind it at all, and while they were speaking, Iria walked into the room, surprising them. She then took a seat and began complaining about how hard it was for her to get to Ryosuke's place since the trains weren't running. She also mentioned that the phone lines were down, but the girls dragged her out of the room before she could say more. In the living room, they told her that Ryosuke had no idea what the outside world was like and said they intended to keep it that way. Inside Ryosuke's bedroom, he asked Mina if she'd seen his phone and computer. She told him that she had accidentally put them in the washing machine. This seemed to surprise him, so he asked how she could put his computer inside the washing machine. Mina said it was because she was a total klutz, which he found hard to believe. Later on, they gathered in the living room, and Iria asked if she could stay with them for a while since Merlot wanted nothing to do with her. Ryosuke agreed to let her stay, but soon noticed the television was missing, and when he asked where it was, Lasora said she sold it. Tired of staying indoors, he told them he was going to an internet cafe, and in an attempt to stop him, Mina suggested they play card games. Ryosuke refused and continued on his way until Iria suggested they play strip poker. Almost immediately he returned, and after they played for a while, he was the only player left with all his clothes on. Lasora lost the last round, so she began taking off her bra until all the cards Ryosuke had hidden in his shirt fell out. Lasora made sure to pay him back for humiliating them by giving him a punch to the face. Later, as he lay down on his bed, he was visited by a Grim Reaper who introduced herself as Delina Earhart, and she said she was there to finish her job since he had 2 weeks to live. Ryosuke told her that she didn't need to bother as he was going to be saved, but she told him that he was acting too high and mighty for someone who put the world in a hard situation. Ryosuke didn't understand what she meant, so she used her powers to show him what was happening. In the living room, the girls were discussing how to save Ryosuke when he walked in. He demanded to know why they had kept the truth from him, and when Iria noticed Delina, she let the others know that she worked for Merla. Lasora tried to convince Ryosuke that Delina lied to him, so he insisted on going outside, but Quill blocked his path. Her actions only confirmed what he already knew, so he demanded that Lasora go with him to help the Restal army fight. Delina checked his energy level and told him that he was too weak to do so. However, she let him know that the army was getting rid of people who were supposed to have died a long time ago. Lasora told her that she wouldn't allow her to take Ryosuke, but Delina said there was nothing she could do to stop it. Late at night, Iria asked Lasora how she wished to spend the time she had left with Ryosuke, because there was no way he would agree to be saved now. Lasora told her that her relationship with Ryosuke wasn't like that, and she wasn't going to force herself to fall for him. Annoyed by her response, Iria laid back down and told her to do as she pleased. Sometime later, Lasora found Ryosuke staring out the window in the living room. He told her that he would be happy to spend his last week with her since he had feelings for her, but she told him that she didn't feel the same way about him. She also said she would make sure he accepted Mina's love and be saved at all costs. A few days later, Ryosuke's mom rushed home to find him lying on the couch with a white handkerchief covering his face. Thinking she had arrived late, she knelt beside him, but he suddenly woke up and she squeezed his neck. Just then, Mina and the others came into the room, and after Ryosuke went to play with the dog, they shared their plans with her. Lasora assured her that with Mina's energy, they would save Ryosuke's life, and she thanked them for helping her son. The next day, Quill and Ryosuke went on a date, but none of them had any idea that they were being followed. Quill used her powers to make a dog chase them, causing Ryosuke to grab Mina's hand and pull her out of the way. After the dog walked away, Mina pointed out that he hadn't held her hands since they were kids. Ryosuke teased her for not being able to walk properly back then without holding his hands. Meanwhile, at the house, Delina told Ryosuke's mother that there was nothing the girls could do to save him. His mother told her that she had faith in the girls and said she was sure they would save him. On the other side of town, Ryosuke and Mina went to see a movie, after which they visited some stores in the arcade, where he won a keychain for Mina from a claw machine. When they sat down to eat some ice cream, they didn't notice the girls were still watching them. Lasora told the others that her work was done, then she let them alone, but Iria just said she was hurting herself. Later on, Ryosuke and Mina went dress shopping and he encouraged her to try on an outfit. When he saw her in the dress, he told her she looked nice, which made her face red because of how shy she was. Immediately, she went back into the changing room and tried to calm her beating heart as she changed back. However, her energy began to glow all around her, because she couldn't help but feel good about his compliment. When she came out of the dressing room, he gave her a bag with the dress and told her to take it as a gift. Later on, as they sat watching the sunset, Mina confessed her love to Ryosuke, causing her energy to overflow. However, when she asked if he loved her too, he told her he was sorry. When Iria and Quill returned home, they told Lasora what had happened, and she ran out of the room to confront him just as he walked into the house. She grabbed him and asked why he had refused Mina, so he told her he didn't want to lie to her, because the person he loved was her. Lasora insisted that she didn't feel the same way, and begged him to accept Mina so he could live. While she was still speaking to him, he suddenly fainted, and when she tried waking him up, his mother walked in. Mina was in her room sulking when Quill came to tell her what had happened to Ryosuke. By the time they arrived at his room, he was already gone, and as everyone began crying, Delina began walking to his room to collect his energy. Delina insisted on collecting Ryosuke's energy, but the girls tried to get her to give them a day to get him back. She refused, saying they would only regret things, and she climbed the bed and prepared to do her job. Lasora tried to stop her, but she put up a barrier to prevent her from interfering before she pulled out her weapon. She then plunged it into his body, only to have it thrown back in her face by Graham, which was still inside his body. She took down the barrier and asked Lasora to remove the sword so she could finish what she was doing. Lasora got on her knees and begged her to stop, but she used her chain to cage her and pushed her body to the ground. Iria tackled Delina out of the window and called her a heartless bitch for not putting their feelings into consideration. Delina wrapped her chain around Iria's neck and lifted her off the ground, saying she would eliminate her. She then threw her into a wall, after which both girls transformed and began attacking each other. Meanwhile, Mina received an email which Ryosuke had sent to her before he died, and in the email, he told her that he had always loved her, but as a friend. In a nearby park, Delina was about to finish Iria off when the sky began to glow, giving Iria a chance to escape. Iria then reappeared in front of Ryosuke's house, and there she met the other girls and Mina, who told them that her energy had activated after she read an email from Ryosuke. After they went inside, Lasora told them that she would separate her soul from her body and go in search of Ryosuke. Quill then pulled out the dagger she used to make her contract with Mina from her body and gave it to Lasora. Lasora plunged the dagger into her chest just as Delina arrived. She assured them that she wasn't going to do anything because she was curious to see the outcome of their little experiment. She told them that the longer a soul stayed away from its body, the harder it was for it to return. At the time of her explanation, Lasora was floating unconsciously somewhere in the netherworld. She managed to wake up right before she got drawn into the soul purification area, and that's when she spotted Ryosuke. She began calling out to him, and he opened his eyes, but it took him a while to figure out what was going on. By the time he figured it out, she was already pulling him towards her, but he tried to stop her. Lasora ignored his warning and kept pulling him towards her even though she started bleeding. When she noticed he was already being purified, she pulled on the chain with all her strength and managed to grab hold of his hand. However, the blade in his chest came out and he fell back, but she kept holding on to him even as she began to get purified. Ryosuke begged her to let him go so she could save herself, but she refused, saying she wasn't leaving without him. He told her to stop being stubborn because he was always destined to die, but she insisted that she was going to save him. When he asked why, she said it was because she loved him and then pulled him in for a kiss. Soon after, she woke up to find Ryosuke hugging his mother, and she began to cry. She then hugged him, and as he apologized for putting her through hell, their combined energy began to glow the same color as Mina's own. This surprised Delina, who did not think it was possible for true love to create such energy. After a while, humans and Reapers learned to live together after Delina proposed that the Reapers help humans maintain their happiness and collect the energy they produced. Ryosuke, on the other hand, remained his cultured self and tried to convince Lasora to make babies with him. His suggestion was met with an explosion to the face, and when Iria opened the door, he fell naked on top of her, which earned him a dirty slap. If you've watched up to this point and loved the video, Let us know by commenting simp. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you guys in the next video.